Hi, my name is Elóise Thomas, and you're watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press. Today I am so excited to be joined by Elóise Thomas. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. I mean, you've been so busy lately with filming projects back to back, but we are, of course, here to talk about your role in series 4 of The Bay, which we will get into. But I wanted to start off with asking you, like, what was that initial spark that made you passionate about the arts and pursuing it as a career?
Yes, so I guess, well, when I was about 4 or 5, my mum put me into a part-time Saturday performing arts school. So it kind of grew with me, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't something I found out about when I was like 13 or 14. It's something that I knew I kind of had with me from quite a young age. I guess the nice thing was that I wasn't like a working actor when I was a kid. I was going to school. I was really into sports, but yeah, I was in it from the get-go. And the performing arts school I was with, they let you be silly, they let you be crazy, they let you be hyper and ridiculous. So I think that kind of helps me form a creative personality, like kind of having this kind of boundlessness of expression. And my primary school, which I guess is elementary school in America and Canada, um they were so creative. Like they would constantly pull people in from different cultures and different types of styles of music and teach us these different ways of performing music. Very, very musical school. So yeah, I think performance was quite a natural thing for me. It didn't feel necessarily nerve-wracking, and it didn't feel like an uncool thing to do because everyone around me really loved it and embraced it.
That's so nice to hear. And I know I was reading that you are a very visual person yourself, drawn to colors and creativity. So it looked like it kind of found your niche like almost immediately. When you were in school and immersed in the arts, who were some like artists, actors that inspired you early on?
Early on, I think, I mean, honestly, early on, I loved Disney because I didn't have it at home at like where I grew up with my mum, but I had it at my grandma's house. So every Friday, being able to be like, oh my God, Friday night, Disney Channel movie night, I'd run to my grandma's house. I think like I thought the magic of it all was just so exciting. And yeah, it's just like so different to daily life, right? And then when I actually got into films, I really got into like the more independent cinema feel when I was about 15, 16. And that kind of came after actually working on short films and student short films. So I was around a lot of people that love film, and that opened my eyes to, I guess, cinema. And from there, I was really drawn to like Greta Gerwig and the A24 style stuff. And I really love Jessica Chastain. I think she's amazing. Yeah, a lot of women in cinema, I guess. Seeing them on the big screen and be like, wow, so cool.
It is really cool. And, with films like, I'm sure you know Lady Bird, that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite films. Yeah, like kind of those eras and like coming of age, especially in the more like, I want to say past 5, 6 years, like it's been so good and so many more women directors are coming up. So it's nice to see them being recognized in their work. Tell me about you briefly touched on it earlier about like acting and drama training. Like what were some of the most valuable lessons that you took away over the years?
I think to to just soak it all in, because and not necessarily with just acting, like definitely with acting and all the experiences that I've been lucky to have with acting so far, but also I think when I was a bit younger I used to worry a lot about, will I ever get the job, and oh my God, I just got rejected. I'd worry so much, and it kind of takes you away from life a bit. And I think now I'm starting to realize a lot of life influences acting and creativity. So just like letting go a bit and enjoying life and not stressing too much about the industry, and that in turn makes your acting a lot better and a lot more honest and vulnerable when you're not so in your head about perception and rejection and where you are compared to someone else, someone somewhere else.
I think that's such a good like lesson to take with you, because can you imagine if you were constantly stressed out, like what's going to happen, like how did I do, and that can really affect your mindset in a negative way. I was also seeing some of your skills listed. I forgot which website, but it mentioned horse riding and horse jumping. So I knew I had to ask you about like the equestrian side. How old were you when you started that?
I was like 11. I was such a horse girl. Like that was very me. I loved horses.
It's
I
like your
didn't want to.
entire theme and personality was horses at one point in
Oh my
time.
God. Yes, I was that weirdo that had like photos of horses. I don't know why I'm saying this, but I was such a horse girl. I mean, I love animals, and I grew up in a household where we love animals, and I've always had pets. So when I started horse riding, it's very cathartic being around like those creatures. Like they're just so calming and friendly, and yeah, I don't do it anymore, but it definitely shaped a lot of my like younger teenage years.
I'm sure it would be nice for you to like kind of merge the two, and maybe in a role in the future, if it's like has to ride
Yeah,
horses, you'd be like, yes, sign me up.
that'd be amazing. I mean, I've done jobs before because I used to also be a figure skater, and I did a job where I had to ice skate, and that was amazing. They were like, "Oh, you might have to learn how to ice skate. Is that okay?" And I was like, I already have. That's amazing. Like brought my skates along, just got to whiz around the ice. So yeah, it's always nice when things outside of acting get to seep in. It's like bringing a part of yourself into it.
And at one time, you also considered a fashion marketing degree because of your love for fashion. So, would you say fashion and style are still a big part of who you are and your identity?
Yeah, so I actually did do a year in a fashion degree, and I interned as like a stylist assistant for a bit for different magazines and stylists. And I think I just realized I was juggling acting at the same time. I realized that I didn't love the fashion industry as much to pursue it in the same way I was trying to pursue the acting industry. But it didn't mean that I didn't like clothes anymore. I think, like you said, I still love clothes. I wouldn't say that I'm like the trendiest gal in town, but I do like the idea of expressing myself through fashion, whether and like seeing different trends and looking at archive stuff, especially. I really love like looking back and like picking out stuff from the past and trying to like bring that into maybe contemporary style.
I think that that constitutes like a good love of fashion. Like you mentioned, like it's all about also perception. Like I saw your
Yeah.
page, plenty trendy to me. I also saw your blog spot page, which is funny because I remember writing blogs before. You had one on trousers, you had one on your favorite Lush products. It's like funny
Oh
to
my
kind of
God.
have those in
Yeah.
your archive. Although at this point you're like, maybe I should take that down. But it's always fun to see like your progression, like from that
Yeah,
time and where you are now, especially in your personal fashion sense.
definitely. I actually came across that blog spot really recently, and I was like, oh my God, I like blacked out that whole phase of my life where I was like trying to become some kind of fashion blogger. But yeah, no, it's completely right, because that has obviously that was like a really small scale version of maybe like what I wanted to be. I wanted to like understand fashion more, and I wanted to be really creative, but I just kind of find things in my room and be like, oh, this is the best face cream in the world. It's like it's not, it's just the cream. But like I guess now I know that I think back then I was so influenced by YouTube culture and being like, I need to be a YouTuber. Whereas now I'm just like, I think, like I said, I'm more interested in just the visuals and not necessarily having to like showcase it, but just like own it or look at it and appreciate it.
Definitely, I think like being more intentional with what you do, and it doesn't have to be on like some grand scale for the world to
Yeah,
see, essentially. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we'll talk about series 4 of The Bay now, which just came out. So congratulations. You can be seen
Thank
as
you.
Izzy Metcalf. What can you share about your audition process, and how familiar were you with the show when you auditioned and when you were cast?
So I auditioned about 3 or 4 months before the production started, maybe even sooner than that. But it was a self-tape, so I had to do it at home, like set up my little studio, and had my friend read in, who's also an actor. And it was quite funny because we were kind of hitting a wall with it. I don't know what I was doing, but we just kept on saying like it just didn't feel right. So my friend Nia was like, look, you just need to let it go, improv. Just do a take where we don't stick to the script. We like break all the rules with it and did it, and it felt really, really good. Then did it again, did a good take, but we actually decided to send off the more improv-y one. And we are just like, we can't not, because that is the one that feels the most natural. And yeah, I didn't hear back for a while, so I just assumed like, oh, whatever, is what it is. Got a recall, did the recall over Zoom, and then from there quickly started moving. Went up to Manchester and did the script read, and then shortly started after that. So yeah, it was quite a quick process, but also quite lengthened out at the same time. Which is quite funny because you're like, it's like you're waiting for exam results. You're like, just want to know. But yeah, it was a really enjoyable casting process, actually.
That's the anticipation, like you mentioned, but I'm glad it worked out for you at the end. And it's always, I'm sure, helpful for you to have friends in the industry. You mentioned your friend Nia, who helped you with the self-tape, because you can kind of bounce ideas off of one another and you feel comfortable having them around, and vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially her, we're kind of on a similar stage of our career, and we would both like text each other years. I've known her since I was like 12, so we would always text each other like, oh, like when are we gonna get our first TV role? And now we're both kind of like a couple of shows in. We always laugh. We're like, oh my god, remember when we would like really like try and manifest it together? And now we're helping each other do these tapes and watching each other do these really amazing things. So yeah, it's really nice to have a community of actors around you. I think that's a really important thing to have as well.
Now, in terms of the show, like had you watched the first 3 series before series 4, or did you not watch them? Did you want to keep it separate? How was that for you?
Yeah, so at first I thought that the good idea was to keep it separate, so I didn't watch it. And then when I like before I started, like just before, I was thinking like, no, I need to watch it. I need to understand the mechanics of it and what the kind of universe is, because even if it is it's very hyper realistic, you still kind of want to be on, you don't want to be doing something completely west from what everyone else is doing, and getting the tone right. But I watched a series before this one, so it's the same regular cast as it is now, which is cool because you're working with the people that you're then seeing. It's like, I know you.
Feel like I just watched you on TV. And we'll talk
Yeah.
about kind of that returning and new cast in a bit, but what can you share about Izzy and her goals and motivations during the season?
So Izzy comes across as a very probably irritable, angsty, rebellious, headstrong teenager, which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. But as the series goes on, you realize that obviously she's just lost her mother in a pretty tragic incident that is being considered as targeted. So like on surface level, she just seems a bit like like angsty, but below, she's actually trying to navigate this trauma, and she's trying to come to terms with these big, crazy things happening, let alone adolescence. And also, she's also trying to navigate the relationship with her father, which she maybe didn't really have as much of before. So yeah, it's quite I mean, I just binged a whole series, and sometimes you forget about your headspace when you're filming, and then watching it, I remember at first being like, God, like I'm being like, the character's so surface level, and then it unfolds and you're like, oh wait, of course, like yeah. So yeah, I think it's an interesting, like playing a teenager is very interesting. It's like trying to do the push and pull of being like mardy and rebellious, but also making it a bit more complex than that.
How did you like get into character? Was it, aside from obviously the mother part, was it easy for you to identify with her? I know something you've done in the past is doing diary entries in the mindset of your character. So is that something that you did with Izzy to better understand her?
Yeah, definitely. I'd look at, I mean, the main thing would be reading the script over and over again for me, and kind of like put like sectioning each bit and just thinking about the headspace, not so much trying to like perform it and learn the lines, but more so thinking like, what if I was in that situation, how would I react? And doing the diary entries, writing lots of notes. Like my scripts are always really messy. They've always got like little doodles or like little thoughts or like one word things. Just trying to get as many ideas down as possible to play around with it, and trying not to stick to one thing, because sometimes you go on set and the person you're playing against is doing a completely different thing, so you want to be able to run with it. But yeah, with Izzy, I think because I was once a teenage girl, it was quite interesting finding ways to tap back into that in like complex ways.
Did you have discussions with any like writers, directors, producers about your portrayal of Izzy? Like, was it very collaborative? Were you given freedom to shape her as well?
Yeah, so very, very collaborative. Like I mean, especially with the actors, like Tom Taylor, who plays my brother, he plays Matt in the series. Um, we would always talk about it in between scenes. We'd always be like, God, this is such an insane thing to happen to this family. Like, we'd really go into the emotions of it. And there were times before scenes where the cast and the director, we would all kind of stand in a circle and debrief and problem solve and just go through the storytelling process together, which is quite unique. I haven't really had, it's quite a rare thing to have in like a super collaborative experience like that on quite like a fast-paced show. So I really enjoyed the collaborative aspect of it.
And it's always nice, like I'm sure it makes you feel valued as an actor, as an artist, that they value your input just as much, and you can kind of share your thoughts. Did you know Izzy's arc and like where the story ended at the beginning, or did you learn more about this whole mystery as you received more scripts, like one episode at a time? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, none of us had any idea what was going to happen at the end. We had the first 3 scripts and we filmed that block first, and then the second block we then got the last 3 scripts, and that's when we got to find out like the whole outcome of everything. So yeah, it's interesting, but I like it like that, because if you were like if that was to happen in real life, you wouldn't know what the outcome was. You'd kind of just be going with it. So that was quite a fun thing to play around with, like being in present time with your character is really cool. But also like as like personally, my relationship with Izzy and like navigating that on set, that developed over time, like always discovering things about the character and kind of sitting into it more and more as time went on, and finding like these little things about her that I could then bring into the script and the story.
Do you think you learned a lot about yourself as an artist through Izzy, and like your capability to like perform in certain scenes, like tap into those emotions you talked about?
Yeah, I think I started to, especially on this job, I started to trust myself as an actor more. I think the last two TV shows I did before that, I think I came in with a sense of like like big eyes, being like, oh my god, like I'm on a TV set, what do I do? Whereas like this, I felt very like, I think because I was on it for longer and the character was a bit more developed, I definitely felt like I could trust myself more, trust myself to go deeper into the character, trust myself to be vocal about it. Like being able to like be collaborative and not shy away from it. I think going forward I'd have a sense of like understanding the mechanics a bit more and throwing myself in a bit more and seeing myself as an actor rather than like a newbie.
You're like, I'm a few series in now. It's a walk in the park. Not really. I'm sure you're always, like you mentioned, like absorbing and learning new things, but it's nice to kind of feel like you're coming into your own in the industry. The season heavily revolves around the death of Beth Metcalf, how her family deals with that loss. So what can you share specifically about the family dynamics, like not just between Izzy and her father, but her father and her siblings, her and her siblings, for example, then what will be uncovered this season?
Yeah, I guess with the family, it's a very strained dynamic, and I think you see that from the get-go. I think the father hasn't really been paternal in comparison to Beth. So a lot of the personal aspect of the series is him trying to like to sit into that more, trying to be a father again, whilst also he's also trying to grieve. I think that's another thing about the family, like everyone's grieving in different ways. I mean, you have these two little kids who Will and Ella, they play Jonas and Amy. Like their experience of grieving the loss of their mother in comparison to like a teenage girl, in comparison to the brother who's just about to go to uni, and the father who has to kind of be responsible for all the baggage of that. So yeah, it's very strained and it's very complex, and it's very like push and pull, I guess. And yeah, I think it's there's warm moments and there's high moments and there's explosive moments. And I think what's great about the writing is that it is just really realistic, and it does show the complexity behind that and behind grief and trauma, and how families aren't always as perfect as they seem on the outside.
I think that's such a good way to put it, and something that I know was talked about is like the whole idea of male widower, male grief, and that's something that's not always like discussed in this context in like the TV film industry. So you mentioned you work closely with Joe, Tom, Will, and Ella. What can you tell me about your on-screen family and what it was like building that personal relationship off screen, but then having to, when the cameras are rolling, work through that fractured storyline?
Yeah, I mean, they're all amazing. Like I mean, Will and Ella became like little siblings to me. It was just really nice. I think from the get-go, the family dynamic came quite naturally, because I mean, all of the cast were just really open and like wanting to tell the story. So it was really easy to like have that openness with them. And even though on camera, I think the fact that we all got along so well off camera meant that even though there were like tensions on camera, there was no awkwardness playing around with that. Like we were all very keen to throw ourselves in and experiment with that, rather than like, I think if we weren't as close, maybe there'd be a bit of like a awkwardness around it, like, oh, how do we but yeah, no, it's very easy to act alongside them. They're all really talented. And yeah, it is quite funny because Joe would always say like, oh, you and Tom are like brother and sister in real life.
I read that there's the opening scene that kind of sets the stage with the house fire and the children outside just shouting. And it was Marsha Thomason, who plays Detective Jen Townsend, who said that it was so heartbreaking and harrowing. So just because that's an opening scene, can you take me through the emotions of that one? And like, how do you prepare emotionally for a scene like that?
I think with that one, that was a scene I was quite nervous about, because you want to do it justice. It's the opening scene and it's a tragic one as well. So you don't want to undermine it or over dramatize it either. So we would talk about it a lot on set, about how, like, ways in which we could navigate it. But there are also times, like right before the take, I would just kind of walk away for like 5 minutes and just try to get into the emotion and like kind of set myself up for it, because it's I mean, like on set, we're like, especially with the kids, we love to be silly and like we love to like mess around and stuff, but I think with that scene we all took it really seriously, and we all kind of had our moments of going off and just breathing into it. And so that when the director did say action, we were like on it.
I think that that's such like an important thing, like finding what works for you, because it sometimes it like, I'm sure it does benefit you to kind of be alone for a bit. Like I know some people like to listen to music before an emotionally heavy scene. Some people just like to be alone, so you can kind of think through it before they say rolling in action. I feel like it also gets you prepared, like right from the get-go, to have a big scene like that.
Yeah, it's insane. I think as well, like following on from that, you feel, I think the great thing about like an ensemble scene is that you really feel the emotion of other people. Like I think a lot of the emotion that I was trying to bring to the table, a lot of that came from just like bouncing off how everyone else was feeling. Like you see people crying, you see people shouting, it's a really intense atmosphere, and you see the visuals of what is the fire. And then like I think when the cameras are rolling, there is a part of you that just feels like that it is a bit real. And then they say cut, and you're like, nope, it's not real. And everyone goes back to kind of a bit more of a neutral vibe.
What was your experience like working with cast like Marcia and the team of detectives? Like, did you pick up on any nuances on how they worked and carried themselves on set?
I mean, they all just had a really warming presence about them. So I think when I got onto set for the first time, or got onto the production, I straight away felt really welcomed, and the atmosphere was just really, it was really professional, and everyone wanted to tell the story, but at the same time it was really light and friendly, and you look forward to coming onto set. And yeah, I think in general, like I think I said this before to someone else, but everyone kind of trusted you to do your role justice. There was no kind of like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Like there was a nice balance of getting advice, but also overall just being trusted, which is nice. So you kind of feel a part of the team straight away, rather than a bit wobbly. It's like straight away it was very welcoming, very everyone trusted each other, and everyone was on the same wavelength.
Are there any specific memorable moments from set and filming that you can share that have kind of stuck with you all this time?
Yeah, there was this little kid. We were filming a scene by the sea, and this little kid, I think he was about 7, he ran onto the set and he was like, I'm working on the crew now. And he was so sweet, and everyone gave him so much time, which was really lovely. And he was getting pictures with the camera. I think he was saying he wanted to be a filmmaker when he was older. And he was just like this little bundle of energy, just like running around the set. And everyone was like, who is this kid? But it was just a really nice like break in between a serious scene, just like this like kid just bringing joy to everyone. So yeah, that was really funny. But in general, I think there's just like loads of nice little moments, like loads of little funny moments where we're all just being silly, and it's just like a really nice atmosphere. There was like a day where an ice cream van was on set, so we just kept going back for ice cream and getting really hyper off the sugar.
I wonder if that affected your takes at all. You were all just like, the energy was at its peak at the end of the day, and they're like, I wonder why that is the ice cream truck. I'm sure it's always a treat to have something new from like craft services.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, it is always nice.
What draws you towards a new project? Like, what do you look for in a new character or script that excites you?
I think the the opportunity to explore different avenues with it. I think when I mean, because I'm still so new to the industry, I say yes to a lot of things, but the very very rare time, I think I've only said no once to something, and I think it's just because I looked at the character and was like, there was everything that the character was, you could see on the paper, and that was it. Like there's nothing underneath that, and I really like to puzzle solve with the story and the character, and I like to like see how to play the opposites. And yeah, I think something with complexity, I mean, I take on anything. Like I really like the idea of playing something completely far away to who I am, and something completely outrageous and surreal and weird. But then I also really enjoy characters like Izzy, where they can be a bit more relatable and hyper real, and and something that like speaks to maybe an audience.
Speaking of new characters, puzzle solving, later this year, you can be seen in HBO's True Detective Night Country. I know you just filmed that over in Iceland. So what can you share? I know it's probably minimal, but there was a plot line released. So maybe speak to a bit about that.
Yeah, I can't share much, but yeah, based on what's like out already, it's set in Alaska. It's featuring Jodie Foster, Callie Reese. It's directed by Issa López, who is just amazing. But I played a pretty small role in it. But yeah, it's insane. Like the HBO productions are just wild. Like it's like going into a different universe sometimes. But it was an amazing experience, and that definitely took me out of my comfort zone. Doing something abroad and doing something so big and so well known like that, even though it was like a small role, it was, I was definitely like pushing myself, and yeah, the same with that. Everyone on there was really lovely, and the fact that a lot of the team were women, and like women with like a lot of strong energies about them, that was really, I'd always come away feeling really inspired and really like motivated. And it reminded me a lot of like why I enjoy doing this and why I want to keep doing it.
I know you have said you have shared, or at least you met Jodie Foster. I guess Issa, I'm not sure if you got to share scenes or meet Callie, but tell me a bit about that. Like, do you remember what it was like meeting them for the first time? Because I'm sure like you're not a big fangirl, but these are, as you mentioned, females, like women in the industry who have done a lot in their crafts, and have just excelled at it and continue to kind of push the boundaries. So for you as an
Yeah.
artist, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, when I did my recall, that was where I met Issa, and I just came away and I was like, whoa, I want to be you. Like you're amazing. She was just like, she she knows what she wants, but she has a very nice vibe about her on set. It's and it's the same with, I mean, I met Jodie once on set, and she was really lovely. It's like seeing people that are so professional and so far into their careers, watching how they work, but also feeling really at ease around them. It's just really cool. I mean, it's you sometimes hear horror stories about people, and it's that's not really nice. But yeah, when you get to work around the greats and they're super lovely, and like you just learn so much from them, it's always really exciting. It's always like such an amazing opportunity.
And Iceland, how was that? Landscape, glaciers.
It's insane. It's really alien. I remember when the plane was landing, I was looking at it, it was like lava filled. So I was like, where am I? This is insane. And I didn't know what to expect, because I know that Iceland, before I knew that Iceland gets really dark in winter. So I was like, oh God, is it going to be really bleak? But it's one of the most coziest, friendliest environments ever. Like the bars are really cozy and the streets are all lit up. It's really Christmassy, and you have like these geothermal pools, which are like naturally heated water that you can just sit in and chat with friends in. Like it's insane. And like to be able to go there whilst on a job, it's just I kind of got to start experiencing it like a local, because I was there on and off for about 4 weeks. So I actually got to explore Reykjavik and talk to people that live there and check out different restaurants and go to gigs and like really get to know the city rather than just like going for like 4 days.
I'm sure you'd be happy to go back at some point.
Yeah, I want to live there.
Already, I'm sure, yeah, like you mentioned, it's such a win because here you have this amazing project and production, and then also like that enhanced cultural experience, getting to explore a new place. Something interesting is in the pandemic, you were introduced to DJing. You're now known as, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, is it Tarcier or?
Tarcier, yeah.
How did your love for the electronic genre, club culture originate, and like who or what inspired you to actually start creating your own mixes and start spinning in public?
So I got into dance music when I was about 18. I think just living in London, you're surrounded by I mean, the UK in general, there's such big dance culture, like from like the 90s. I was like the hacienda scene. I mean, I could go on forever about it, but yeah, I started going to clubs, and I think going back to the whole seeing yourself in other people, I went to this club, and it was like a women's night, and there was like loads of like female DJs, and I was like, whoa, they're so cool, like they're like bringing the party, like I want to do that. And then over lockdown I got some decks, didn't really use them much, I kind of dabbled here and there. And then I went to university and signed up to like a DJ society, put my name down for this big club night and got put on the lineup. And I was like, oh my God, I need to learn how to I need to learn how to DJ now. And that was when I was like, this is so fun. Like I started just collecting songs and creating them together and like treating it like kind of an instrument rather than just playing songs back to back. That's what I became really interested in. And yeah, I go by the name Tarcier, which it kind of came from my friend. We were like talking about what animals we'd be. We were animals, and my friend was like, "Oh, you kind of like a tarsier," which are those monkeys with like really massive eyes. And I was like, "Oh, great, thanks." But then we were saying like how good of a stage name that would be, like if you were like a singer or like a DJ. So I was like, "Oh, cool! Like I'm stealing that." But yeah, it's quite a funny funny visual behind it. But yeah, I do a lot of like, I try to do as much as I can, especially in like the more like femme and queer scenes, just because it's such a friendly vibe, like really fun. And yeah, it's nice to be a part of like a small London scene.
That's a great stage name. Actually, it does sound like a very like one name, and hearing the story behind it, it's really funny. But in terms of like performing live, tell me about what kinds of songs or artists you like to spin or kind of mesh together, and have you become a lot more comfortable as you've had more gigs?
At first, I was really nervous. I remember the first couple I did, I would just like kind of be waiting on the dance floor, like, oh my God, like I'm gonna be so bad. But then you have to like, you realize it's really not that deep. Like it is kind of just clicking. I mean, there's people that are amazing with it and do really insane tricks with it, but like essentially you're just clicking a few buttons. Like it's really not the end of the world if you mess up, and people like most of the time people don't realize. So I think as I started to do it more, I got a lot more relaxed about it, and I just thought like even now I'm not necessarily perfect, but I think I just always remind myself like I'm there because I want to share songs and I want to help put on a party. I'm not there to show off or like be like, look at me doing these tricks. So I think knowing that's why I do it has made me a bit more confident with it. But yeah, I love it. It's really fun. I also love like the idea of like doing like, it's funny because a lot of the songs I play are like kind of electro, like electronic-y stuff. Sometimes it gets a bit weird. And a lot of my friends are like, Elóise, it's really weird that you play all this music because it's kind of dark and you're really like light in real life. So I kind of like this idea of having this alter ego at night where like I play this music and it's like dark and it creates an atmosphere. So yeah, I kind of like playing around with the idea of Tarcier being almost a character,
There
like
seems like
acting.
there's some duality to it, but it's
Yeah.
like I only
Yeah.
come out at night kind of thing. That's kind of
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, but you also have some gigs. I think you're planning more for the spring, so more experience to get out there. You have performed at shows organized by Bold Melon Collective, platforms Awake All Hours, which, like you mentioned, they help to build the underground art scene, but also celebrate queer and underrepresented creatives. So how important is it to have these around and be a part of these communities?
Oh, it's so important. I think, especially because DJing is kind of seen as quite a masculine thing, which I don't really understand because there's nothing, we don't do that with music in general. We don't say, oh, music is a man's thing. So I don't really get how that seeped into DJing, but I do think that is slowly changing with the rise of, especially in London, and I can imagine big cities around the world, like these scenes of like queer culture where people dress up in like amazing costumes and like women getting on the decks and like even just like music nerds. I think that's another thing. DJing is seen as cool, but like a lot of like the people that I DJ with, or like the nights I go to, a lot of them just like really love music, and it's nice to see that, because I think with anything where you have to show your face as a performance, there can come a sense of arrogance or a sense of like bravado. So it's nice that these little scenes are coming up where it isn't about that and it's just about community and enjoying music. I think that is what the core of it is. So I think it's really important, and inclusivity as well, like making club culture feel safe rather than having to go with a group and having to like have guy friends around you. It's nice to like go to these club nights where you're just there with your friends. You can wear what you want, you can be who you want, and you don't have to worry about your safety a lot of the time.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I do think that there is some ways to go, but I do notice that even if you look at some of the more like the bigger festivals, electronic music, like slowly you are seeing more female and female identifying names on the bill, which is important to kind of continue going as the scene develops. On the topic of music, you did direct a music video for the Dawdler a few years back, so you also have an eye for graphics and photography. What did you learn and take away from your experience as a director, and is it something that you'd be interested in doing more of in the future?
Yeah, that was quite funny because when I did that video, I've never directed in my life. I was just an actor. But on the whim, I really like this guy's music. So on the whim, I just DM'd him like, hey, can I direct your music video? So with DJing, like not expecting anything to come out of it. And then he got back to me and was like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, okay, right. I need to, I'm a director now. And I think I just had to trust that I could do it. And my friend is an amazing DOP. He got on it, and having him there really helped as well, because he's been on set on the crew side. So it always felt like I could lean onto him a bit. And the music video was quite ambitious for someone that's never directed before with like a low budget. Like I had like loads of extras and we're doing it in loads of different locations. But I think because I had acting experience and all of my friends were like helping out, it just made it a lot more easier to go about it, I guess. But yeah, I definitely did enjoy it. It was really fun, actually. It was really fun directing actors because you then realize like, oh wait, this is I'm doing what I want a director to do to me as an actor. So it's kind of like helping the other actor from an actor's perspective. But yeah, it's really cool. And then also getting to meet other actors through that, like the guy who was in the Dawdler music video, Alex, like we've become great friends, and he ended up signing to my agency, so we're always like supporting each other. But yeah, I've actually written a film, and I think when I trust myself enough, I'd like to like properly direct that.
Amazing. Is it a short film or a full length?
It's about, I'd say about 25 minutes long. So yeah, short film.
I think that you have to start somewhere. So that's very exciting to hear. And I have to say, like, that video I loved. It's for Dark Clouds, for people who want to check it out. And like, I loved the idea of having the mask play in and like the perception of others and ourselves. And there was like a switch between reality and like dreams and ambitions. So it was really well done. And it's a beautiful
Thank
song as
you.
well. I'm glad that it worked out. Very positive experience. Hopefully the artist loved it as well.
Yeah, it was really fun. I think that's like, I think because I was 20 when I did that, and that was like when I got that done, it was like, oh my God, I really did that. So I think if you ever want to direct, just do it. I think that's the advice a lot of people tell me as well. Like if you ever want to make something, just like get out your phone and do it. We have so much at our fingertips. Why not?
Well, I would say two more questions for you, but I'll start with our signature question. If you could be any ice cream flavor, which would you be and why?
Oh, ice cream flavor. Oh, I like this question. Well, I love chocolate ice cream, but I don't think I'd be a chocolate ice cream. I think I'd maybe be like, I'd like to be like a mint ice cream, maybe. Like quite refreshing. I'd like to be quite refreshing. I like the color of it. It's really cool. Um, it's a nice complement to different flavors. I feel like it would be quite a fun ice cream in the ice cream world. So yeah, probably mint.
I love that answer. And like you mentioned, it's refreshing, like a nice palate cleanser too. Thank you for sharing that. And lastly, did you finish making your clay flute?
No, I didn't. This is one thing I do a lot. I do like everyone will say this. I'll just always say things like I'm gonna make a ceramic bowl and then I don't, or like I'll start and there'll just be like this half finished bowl or half finished thing, and it'll never see the light of day. That's like one thing I really want to get better at, like finishing off things that I say that I'm gonna do, or just don't say it.
You're like, there's the other alternative. I could just like not have that come out of my mouth. So there's not that expectation. So how far
Yeah.
along were you with that clay flute when you moved on to the next creative endeavor?
I was like sculpting like I was trying to make a kind of mold for it out of a carrot, because you can make flutes out of carrot. I don't even know what was going through my mind, but I started making a carrot flute in like drilling holes, and then from that I was going to base the clay flute off of it. But I think, yeah, very ambitious, but worth a shot.
I used to play the flute, so I know it's pretty intricate.
Oh
So I was
wow.
curious like how you were going to like do the keys, and I guess you were gonna, I guess, drill the hole and then put the clay around it or something like that.
Yeah, there's something about like different, I mean, I guess you must know this, but like different hole sizes make different sounds. So I mean, you'd probably be great at making a clay flute.
Probably not. It's there's so many different mechanisms, and even like the flute itself is actually like comprised of three different parts or something
Oh
usually.
wow.
But I do applaud the ambition, and I'm sure that you'll get better at it as you go along, or like you mentioned, maybe just not tell other people that you're doing the
Yeah.
project, so they'll be surprised when you finish it. But that's all I have for you, Eloise. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It's been so much fun.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
Of course, for all those watching, you can make sure to catch Eloise in The Bay Series 4. It is out on ITV1 and ITVX, and we will see you next time.